Wake up, wrestling fans. Let's get amped. Let's get excited. It is pay per view preview day. My name is Christian. I'm here with the Duality of Wrestling podcast. Thanks so much for checking us out. And we've got a big one to go through today. I don't want to waste too much time because this will easily be a two-parter, given that we have 10 matches to review and analyze on today's AEW Redemption preview. So let's jump right into it. I don't want to waste anybody's time. First match on the card was just announced this past Wednesday at Dynamite. It's going to be the Dogs versus the Bang Bang Gang in a double chain tag team match. So this feud has been going on since Jay White's return. Cope and Cage have kind of loosely been involved in it, which kind of led to their tag team title match later in the show. But really, this has been centered around Jay White's issues with David Finlay, stemming from their time in New Japan together when Finlay kind of stabbed Jay White in the back. So that's really where this is all stemming from. We've gotten a lot of it on Collision. We've gotten a little bit of it this past week on Dynamite, but this has primarily been a Collision-based feud, and I'm hopeful that this allows us to recenter on Jay White as a top guy, or at least an upper mid Carter at the time being. Right now, we're kind of getting the return narrative feud that makes sense to introduce Jay White back into the normal wrestling landscape in AEW. And that's where I think we end up with this one. This is kind of be the end to the retribution story for Jay White, getting one back on the team that sort of laid him out and has been a thorn in his side for quite some time. So I expect this one to really set the tone for that. It's going to be good. I do feel like it's going to mostly resemble a dog collar match, given the fact that, they're going to be chained together. The chain is going to be the primary, weapon or outside object utilized in this match. But I think we're going to get some really fun spots with it as well. These guys are all very creative, especially Jay White. He's really great at being able to use what opponents give him and make it look really good, but also make himself look good in the process. And it's going to, I believe, elevate the Bang Bang Gang here, which is what's necessary. If you remember back when in the early days of Collision, they were right at the same tier essentially as FTR. That was one of the first really big Collision feuds, was FTR versus Bullet Club Gold / Bang Bang Gang. And I think they could really use a big push back up in that direction. Jay White gives them the star power to have them be able to do it with some credibility and make the audience believe that they belong in that tier. So this to me is very much it's going to be a brawl. It's going to be fun. Don't expect too much in terms of like in-ring special ability here, but overall this is going to be one where the dogs get sort of put down and the Bang Bang Gang use this as a means to move back up the card. This is an easy win prediction for Jay White's Bang Bang Gang. Next up on the card, we have a 6-way ladder match to determine the number one contender for the AEW International Championship. We've got Jack Perry versus the Beast Mortos versus Commander versus Speedball Mike Bailey versus Nick Wayne versus returning El Clone. So in analyzing multi-man matches, I feel like it's easiest to determine who we can rule out at the start of this. So I'm going to rule out Beast Mortos. I'm going to rule out Commander, especially because they recently just had a match for that title, so that seems like an easy one to rule out. I'm going to rule out Nick Wayne. Don't see them doing a heel versus heel thing. And I'm going to rule out El Clone because he's also a Don Callis family member. So that leaves us with just the baby faces of Jack Perry and Speedball Mike Bailey that should have a chance to win this match. I'll come back to that in a moment, but I do want to note that despite some of these guys not having a chance to win, their inclusion in the match is fantastic because guys like Commander, guys like Nick Wayne, guys like El Clone are going to go all out to make this a really, really great spot fest to watch. All of them have proven that they can do a high flying / luchador style exceptionally well. Beast Mortos is going to be there to sort of give it a little bit more gravity and make some of these moves a bit more impactful. Not everybody can be a high flyer, obviously, but I do think this is going to be a really great spectacle of a match. and I'm very excited to actually watch it. It's one of those, like, do I care super much about the outcome? No, not really, because it's just going to be fun. It's just going to be a good watch. Um, and I think we'll all enjoy it. So, and I think we'll all end up marveling at some of the spots they come up with in this match. I'm almost certain that our jaws are going to drop at some of the things Commander, Speedball, Nick Wayne, El Clone, even Jack Perry, all of them end up doing and having done to them in this match. So that brings us back to Jack Perry and Speedball Mike Bailey as the only guys who I think realistically have a chance to win this match. Jack Perry seems like the least likely of the two to win this match. He doesn't seem like he has a firm direction here. His character, since he's resigned, hasn't really declared a direction in which they're going. There's no emotional attachment really in what's going on. Whereas Speedball has the emotional attachment with sort of what's going on with Kevin Knight. And this seems like it's going to be the start of a Speedball redemption arc. Speedball is a guy who's just been so good in the ring since debuting at AEW. I don't think there's any way that they don't put a title on Speedball Mike Bailey within the next calendar year. And with that said, I think would be a great time to give him the number one contendership for the international championship. The only way I could see that not being the case here is they seem very locked in for the international championship at All In. They seem like they're going to do Kyle Fletcher versus Kazuchika Okada versus Konosuke Takeshita. Now, if this number one contendership is supposed to happen before All In, then Jack Perry makes more sense because I don't see the point in having Speedball Mike Bailey lose that match unless it is an outside interference based loss, which obviously with the Don Callis family is always possible. With Jack Perry could absorb a loss to Kyle Fletcher like that and be clean and then still not really hurt him because he still has a good bit of clout left from being a TNT champion. He gets featured in just contract re-signing videos. He obviously is a very important part of AEW's future. Speedball does not have the kind of tenure Jack Perry does with the company, so I think losses hurt Speedball a bit more than they do Jack Perry. So to me, on its face, I think Speedball makes the most sense to win, but it is going to be very, very dependent on when they plan on executing the number one contendership here. If this is prior to All In, then I think it's going to be Jack Perry that takes the win here, and we get a really fun Dynamite TV match between Kyle Fletcher and Jack Perry for the international title. If it is after All In, or even maybe having somebody added to that potential three-way at All In, then I think it's Speedball Mike Bailey, and I think that would be incredible to watch. I am rooting for Speedball here. I'm still, there's nothing against Jack Perry. Love Jack Perry. But Speedball is just so good, and I don't want to say he's underappreciated, but the guy deserves a singles championship, much in the same way Jack Perry did when he was first kind of breaking out on his own. So I would love to see Speedball get there, especially if this is a longer term number one contendership. I'm very, very okay with them, even having Fletcher retain at All In, only to drop the title maybe at All Out in Chicago to Speedball. That to me would be very, very sensible. I would like to see that. So that's what I have my fingers crossed for, but we'll see how it goes. But to me, the only real logical winners here are Speedball and Jack Perry. Let's go to the AEW TBS Championship match with Hikaru Shida defending against Maya World. Maya has a ton of momentum going for her right now. The fans are definitely behind her. A lot of this has been sort of a switch around feud that I'll explain. On Collision mostly, they've done a lot of the Hikaru Shida beats somebody up after a match and then somebody else comes out to make a save, and this has happened a couple times now. It started with Hikaru Shida defending against Harley Cameron. She ended up beating but then injuring Harley Cameron post-match. That brought out Queen Aminata to make the save. The same thing then happened the following week to Queen Aminata, and that brought up Maya World to make the save. And that is how we get Maya World versus Shida in this particular match. Shida, I think, is a perfect fit for the TBS Championship. She's not quite at the level where she can go back into the Women's World Championship level tier. Obviously, she is a three-time Women's World Champion. Obviously, she could slot in there anytime, but she's been gone for quite a while, and she lost her feud to Statlander, and Statlander's not even in that conversation at the moment, so I think that precludes Sheeta from being there as well. So the question is, does Maya World take the title off of her at this point? I'm going to say no for two reasons. One, I think, again, Sheeta is a great fit for this sort of TBS championship role. She has all of the resume to elevate that championship. She's very good in the ring. I like her newfound heel character. The best is Sheeta line she's come up with fits her very well. And then the other reason is Maya World seems destined to be the one to take the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship off Athena. Athena's now broken the record held by Roman Reigns for the longest title reign of any kind, of any gender, in the modern era. So there's really nothing left for Athena to accomplish by continuing to hold that title. And we saw at the previous pay per view, after Maya World's loss in the Owen finals, Athena was sort of talking trash to Maya World, which makes me think there is going to be a moment here, probably towards Death Before Dishonor or Final Battle or something like that, where Maya World takes the title from Athena. So that's where I think they're going with Maya, and with that in mind, I don't see a way she wins here. There's no reason. If your plan is to put the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship on Maya World, you don't give her the AEW TBS Championship. And also, I don't think Maya World's particularly ready for that level of competition just yet. She's been, good so far, and the crowd again is getting behind her. I just don't think she's ready for that title at this particular time. So I'm going to say Hikaru Shida retains here, and we move forward with Shida as your TBS champion going into All In. We're going to go next to the tag team match between one of the two Death Riders factions, which is Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay, sort of the A team of the Death Riders, against the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. So this feels like a way for everybody involved who's going to have prominent roles at All In to have something to do that's not going to really impact anything from a storyline standpoint. Obviously, Moxley in an ideal world would be defending his Continental Championship on this show. Or, again, in my ideal world, he should be challenging Kenny Omega for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. That's just what I would have liked to have seen happen. So take that just for what it's worth. Will Ospreay, I think it could have been cool to see him defend the right to go to All In against somebody, maybe against a Kyle Fletcher, maybe against a Kevin Knight, maybe against, maybe against a Pac, somebody else. But I don't think, maybe even a Moxley, to be honest with you. I just don't think, this is the best vehicle for them. I know we've been pushing them a lot more on Dynamite as a team. I'm fine with that, but having them facing the Young Bucks here, there's really no stakes involved in this particular match. We closed Dynamite last week with a brawl between these two teams, but there's no real emotion to me behind this. There's nothing that really makes me care about this match. Obviously, it's going to be good. The Bucks are the best tag team of their generation. They're incredible in the ring. Will Ospreay is one of the three best wrestlers in the world. Jon Moxley is exceptional. They have very good chemistry together, and I'm very interested to see where the Death Rider story goes following All In. Leading up to it, I'm not quite as interested, but following All In, that's where I really am curious to see where they go with Mox, Ospreay, and the Death Riders at large. But this match just feels like we're all treading water just to get us to All In, but also have us something fun and enjoyable on the card for all of these four prominent men to do. So unfortunately, despite the fact that it's going to be a very good match, it's not something with much stakes or gravitas behind it. So it'll be fun to watch, but I'm not, super interested in it. As far as a prediction goes, it's a little bit difficult to say because obviously the Bucks are being groomed for a match against Cope and Cage for the tag team championships at All In. So you would think that given that that's where we're headed next, you wouldn't think that they'll lose. But do you really think that Jon Moxley or Will Ospreay are going to eat pins heading into All In? I don't think so. I mean, Will Ospreay is challenging in the main event for the biggest title in the sport. So there's no way Will Ospreay is taking the loss there. That would leave Jon Moxley to be the guy who takes a loss. Moxley, I'm sure, has no problem doing that. Mox is a team player, but at the same time, does that really make sense for Moxley being the ace of the Death Riders for him to lose here? I don't think, especially as a Continental Champion, I don't think so either. So I'm not really sure what you do here. So that might make me think that we're looking at some kind of a disqualification finish here, maybe a run in of some kind, maybe a returning FTR gets involved, maybe the Motor City Machine Guns show up and get involved. I'm not totally sure, but I do think that there is some kind of shenanigans that happen here because none of these guys should really be losing, which is another reason why I think booking this match is not a decision I would make. I'm not a guy who says let's book a match and then figure out how we get through it later and figure out who should lose later. No, I want to know at the outset who should go over and who should be taking the fall here. None of these four gentlemen should be taking the fall with the plans that are set up for them for All In. And with that in mind, I'm going to say disqualification / no contest finish of some kind in this match. But that said, it will be a fun watch. Another tag team match, speaking of the tag titles, Cage and Cope will be defending against the, I hate to say B team of the Death Riders, but not the C team, that's Yuta and Garcia. The B team being Claudio Castagnoli and Pac, and this is for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Now, I am never one to complain about Pac and Claudio in a prominent championship match on pay-per-view. Never. Because those guys deserve all the accolades they get. They deserve all the TV time they get. I am big fans, especially of Pac. Pac, I feel like, is a guy who is far too often overlooked as a main event player, and he shouldn't be. He has everything. He can wrestle any style. He has the look. He has the entrance. He has the promo ability. This guy should be a top guy and would be almost anywhere else. If any promotion not named WWE, Pac is the top guy. So him being the third or fourth most prominent Death Rider, to me, feels like a waste of Pac. And I really hope that's something that gets rectified here soon. But that soapbox aside, this feud also has been a little bit of a throwaway, and that's kind of unfortunate. This has really been an extension of the aforementioned Bang Bang Gang and Death Riders feud that has looped in Cage and Cope, considering Jay White returned following Cage and Cope defending against the Death Riders previously. I'm sorry, against the Dogs previously, where the Death Riders got involved. So this has really just been born out of that, which doesn't feel like a good use of the last big tag team championship run of a prominent tag team. And I don't even want to say prominent tag team, one of the most important tag teams of the last 30 years in Christian Cage and Adam Copeland. I don't think we should be booking them in their home country in a pay-per-view feud for the tag team championships based off of other factions' feuds. It doesn't feel strong. It doesn't feel important. This is a match I should want to see. We should care that, these four men are fighting for the tag team titles and the right to head to All In as the tag team champions. I don't. It has not hooked me. The fact that Cage and Cope had to challenge Claudio and Pac doesn't, make a great deal of sense either. It's just none of this has really hit home for me. I don't know if it's worked for you guys or not, but I feel like we could have done better here with Cage and Cope. And this just feels like, again, something for prominent figures of the roster to do to get us to All In while giving them a prominent pay-per-view match, which, again, with All In on the horizon, I can understand it, but I don't love it. And I feel like we could have built this better from a storyline standpoint. I didn't love that last pay-per-view Cage and Cope defended against the Dogs. I feel like they deserved better. Now we're doing the defense against the Death Riders. It's not that they deserve better, because obviously Claudio and Pac are fantastic, but the storyline build to me isn't there. I would even say the Dogs had a better storyline build in that arc rather than this particular match. So better opponents, worse story, if that makes sense. So I don't love this, but again, there's also no way that the Death Riders are winning here. This is Cage and Cope are going to waltz their way into All In to take on the Young Bucks and potentially anybody else who could be involved in that match. Cage and Cope versus the Bucks is what we're all waiting for. We've been waiting for it since, Revolution. I don't think there's any way we don't get there. So Cage and Cope are going to be victorious here. Obviously, with Claudio and Pac, it's going to be a great match. Cage and Cope are a bit more limited in terms of what they can do in the ring. They're not exactly able to physically hang with Claudio and Pac anymore, but it's still going to be a very, very good match because the Death Riders boys can carry the veterans to a fantastic match, and I'm sure they will, even though the veterans will prevail.